Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the RuneQuest rules by Chaosium Incorporated. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. Strong language, mature scenes, and rune magics are on the way. As this is our Glorantha, we will remind listeners that it may vary from the one you already know and love. And now, on to the show. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your storyteller Michael, for the inaugural episode of our 6 seasons in Sartar campaign, where we are going to play some RuneQuest for you. And so at the top of the show, as we always like to do, we'd like to thank you, the listener, and especially you, the Patreon supporter. If you've not had a chance to check out what we offer, you can on patreon.com/theoldwayspodcast. Check us out over on YouTube as well, and stay up to date on all of the breaking news and fun events. And now we're going to get to our inaugural character introductions, so I'll turn to my right.
Hi, my name is Heather, and I am playing Lysana, daughter of the healer Nyana Carl of Cliff's Shield Stead.
Fantastic. And to Heather's right.
This is Morgan, and I play Alara, daughter to Keldon and Ariana of Hillgate Stead, and our pronouns are she, her.
Fantastic. At the end of the table.
This is Jake. I'm playing Vargas, son of Gordanger of Twice Blessed Dead.
And last but most certainly not least.
Hi, this is James, and I'll be playing Garifin, son of Kolar of the Hillstead. And I look forward to seeing what the world has to offer.
So I'd like to do a little bit of a light reading, I would say, to set the stage for this chronicle. We are going to be focused on Blackstag Vale. Blackstag Vale is the home of the Haraborn, one of the tribes of the Colomar. And it's important to understand where they came from to understand where they are. Every year has its seasons that mirror the ages of the gods. I sing to you now of the 6 that bring the days of the Haraborn to a close. The Haraborn are tied to a special spirit, a whiter, in their vale. This whiter is the stag, and over many years there have been challenges presented to those whom call that vale home. In the before time, the entity that would eventually become the clan Whiter, the Black Stag, is one of many children of Hyken, father of beasts, and the mountain goddess Carol Finn. He laid claim to the mountainous valley, bearing his name long before time, when he challenged the 7-tailed wolf for dominion over it. Victorious, he drove the wolf and his pack away, and married Running Doe, the rushing mountain stream that cuts through the vale, today called Deer Run. Together they made the vale a safe refuge for their children, the albino ghost deer unique to the region. During the Lesser Darkness, Jostakos Forkspear and his warband wandered into the vale. One of the many sons of Heort, Jarkosis and his men fought long and hard against chaos. One of his followers was Ungbark Zakbak, a dark troll warrior. Tired and hungry, the band were shocked to find a place in the wasted world where game was plentiful and decided to hunt there. It is said Jarkosos himself shot the arrow that killed the martyr fawn, and the wrath of the black stag was terrible. The earth shook. The entrance to the vale squeezed shut, placate the stag and spare his followers. The son of Jarkostos swore that after chaos was defeated, they and all their line would remain in the vale, replacing the child the black stag had lost. The stag agreed, but Running Doe was not so easily appeased. She cursed Jostakos, saying he would indeed return to the vale, but it would be to be buried alongside her slain child. The curse was a true one. Jarkostos fell during the darkness, and his sons carried his body back to the vale and raised a mound over him. This was how Hortlings came to dwell there as the Haraborn, the Black Stag clan. After the dawn, the Haraborn lived a quiet life of relative isolation in the vale, farming, herding, and trading with related clans in the valleys below. They worshipped Orlanth and Arnalda, and true to their word, never wavered from the vow to honor the Black Stag and Running Doe as their own ancestors. In these early days, there were some skirmishes with the local Tamori, urged on by the seven-tailed wolf, who felt the onset of time was the perfect chance for a proxy war to regain the Vale. The Haraborn proved their claim to the Vale time and time again by driving the Telmori off, just as their whiter had in the God's Age. As the empire of the Worm's Friends slowly rose around the clan, their whiter answered the divinations concerning them by counseling against the lies and deceptions of dragons. As a result, the Haraborn stayed free of draconic mysticisms, even as many clans around them embraced it. This was the start of the clan's reputation as a staunch traditionalist. For centuries, the clan continued to stay true to the old ways, maintaining cordial relations with draconicized neighbors. But mounting pressure from these neighbors and dire warnings of impending doom from divinations eventually forced the Haraborn into self-imposed exile. In 1118 ST, after more than 1,000 years in the Vale, they burned their homes to the ground, gathered what they had, and went south. A year later, the great dragons came in wrath and killed every man, woman, and child in the pass. The years in exiles were difficult. Bound to the Vale, the clan Whiter was unable to accompany his human kin south. In his place, he sent one of his sons, Whiteheart, to serve as the Haraborn Whiter in exile. These years were the beginning of the Whiteheart shamanic tradition that persists among the clan to this day. Without the protection of the Black Stag and his Vale, however, the clan struggled to survive. Portland was filled in those days with destitute refugees fleeing the dragon kill, and the Haraborn were forced to wander from place to place, selling their labor, their swords, and sometimes even themselves to survive. This changed when Jernun Shadechaser challenged Barnor, son of Grud, for the position of clan chieftain. Shadechaser was one of the Troll-Touched, a Haraborn clansman born with pitch-black hair and eyes, and tied to the Darkness Rune. This was the legacy of Ungvar Zakbak, who died alongside Jarkostos and many of his men, and was entombed in the Vale. Ever after, a small number of Haraborn were born Troll-Touched, and Jernun was among these. Once he was a leader of the clan, Jernun took his people to the court of Ezkenkeko, the only Old One. It is said that the Old One recognized Jernun as troll-marked, and his clan as friends of the race. He employed the clan as mercenaries in his armies, and gave the women and children homes. For nearly 2 centuries, the Haraborn had a new home, and flourished in Ezkenkeko's service. The death of the only Old One at the hands of the Pharaoh in 13 ST ended this time of refuge. Divinations were performed, and the Whiteheart consulted by shamans. It was time, they said, at long last, for the Haraborn to return home. It was not an easy homecoming. The clan returned to find the Telmori had taken the Vale in the name of the seven-tailed wolf, and now ruled the Vale at last. The Black Stag and Running Doe were imprisoned, their children hunted and in hiding. Before they could settle in their ancient homeland, the Haraborn had to retake it. The battles that followed were violent and costly. In 1328, Stag Hill was won by the clan, enabling the chieftain and his ring to perform a hero quest reenacting the Black Stag's triumph over the wolf. This liberated the Whiter, and for the first time in centuries, a royal was born to the local ghost deer population. The tide had turned, and the Telmori were driven off once and for all. This began a new era of peace and prosperity. A century after the return, the Haraborn were part of the Kolomar tribe and eventually supporters of the Prince of People, Sartar. They had revived the old ways, and once again honored the doe and stag. But a baleful new orb, hanging crimson in the sky, and its spawn, the foul lunar empire, came south in invasion. At the Battle of Grizzly Peak, the Black Stag followed the Kolomar king, Kenstrel, against the lunar forces, and lost their own chieftain, Kentril Barskon. It was a sign of doom to come. A generation later saw the lunar puppet on the throne in Boldholm and the foul lunar waves spreading through the lowlands. In the years since, the Haraborn has grown more isolated as they cling to the old ways. To Colomar King Kangharl, son of Kagradus, a lunarized Sartarite, they are something of an embarrassment. He habitually refers to the Colomar as the 12 clans, with the Haraborn small enough and remote enough in their mountain valley to be conveniently forgotten. And that is where our tale begins, in a vale, no more than 400 or so in their tribe. We look in on the Haraborn. And so I feel it's important that you meet each one and that you learn a little something more about them. And so I'll return to our introduction order and I'll ask Heather to properly introduce her character to our listening audience.
Hail and well met. I am Lysana, daughter of the healer Nyana Carl of the Highwater. I am granddaughter of the Sara, who rode to meet Tai Koratek in the glory of Incarne, the feathered horse queen. All honor and praise to the blood that binds us all and the earth that keeps us. I am a proud Haraborn, whose grandmother took to the chariot and began driving much-needed soldiers and supplies through the fighting at the Battle of Grizzly Peak, dying in service to her people. I am a proud Haraborn, whose grandfather, Korik, survived Aldakur to fight against the lunar assassins in the Holy Country, dying in great glory, defending members of the royal house of Sartar. I am a proud Haraborn, whose father, Hareth, survived the fall of Boldholm and was blessed by Belentar at the Battle of the Building Wall. My parents fought during the rebellion of 1613 and aided Kalir Starbrow in escaping from Sartar. My father fell to the chaos of lunar magics, but my mother continues to serve our clan as a healer. After the loss of my brother Glorantha as an infant, I devoted myself to the goddesses of the earth and to strive to learn to serve my people through the healing arts. With this, I take my first step upon my destined path within Glorantha.
Fantastic. All right. Morgan, if you would.
I'm Alara. I'm daughter to Keldon and Ariana, and granddaughter to assistant shaman Thalia and the great warrior Alaric. At my father's wish, I'm following in his footsteps to farm our great land, but sometimes my heart yearns to follow in my grandmother's and mother's footsteps to become an assistant shaman. Other times, I feel like nature is calling to me and that our great earth mother, Nalda, is guiding me to become a hunter. My grandmother Thalia, an honored assistant shaman, fought at the great battle of Grizzly Peak, as well as witnessed Aldachuri acclaim Tarkalors, Terrasurin as Prince Aldachur. She then survived in the Holy Country and witnessed the murder of a beloved member of the Sartar royal house. And then in 1602, she fought and died with great glory in the Boldholm campaign. My grandfather, Alaric, the great warrior, was by her side during this battle and held her hand as she moved on. And while he continued doing great deeds in protecting our tribe, my father tells me that losing Thalia has caused him great pain. My father, Keldon, is a proud farmer that has helped provide food and meat to Sartarite soldiers during times of war and battle. And my mother, Ariana, has continued in my grandmother's footsteps and become a valued and honored assistant shaman within the clan Haraborn. My parents were not able to have any more children, as the most holy earth mother, Nalda, only honored them with me.
Wonderful. Jake?
I am Vargast, son of Gordagast, son of Kestrel, the twice blessed, who fell at the Battle of Grizzly Peak defending the king and queen. My grandmother was slain by rival tribesmen several years later. My father, Chief Gordonast, fought in Starbrow's rebellion and aided his escape. I follow my father as a warrior of the people, and I will bring great honor to our name.
James, if you would.
My name is Garifin. My friends, of course, call me Finn. I come from a long line of honored and humble folk. My grandmother fought at Grizzly Peak, died with honor on the battlefield, defending the royals. And my grandfather, who was thankfully fairly cognizant, decided to stay home. He taught my father how to create pottery, which is how we are known about the village, is making some of the finest glazed earthenware about. But truth be told, if I had my choice between helping my father, listening to the sermons of my priest mother, or fishing alone out on a river, hanging perhaps with Alara, well, obviously the river and maybe an absconded bag of wine. Who knows?
Fantastic. So that gives you all a little touch about our Haraborn here. And so now we'll just say part the veil and give them their true welcome. So we begin our tale on Clay Day, in Fertility Week, during sea season. Very much the beginning of what we would recognize as spring. And spring in the Vale is a wonderful and potentially very bountiful time. But before we go forward, we'll look back just one last time. It's important to understand that we've come out of sacred time. And so this is a time when all of the Haraborn work to do their sacred duty to their gods and goddesses and to Glorantha itself and ensure that the wheel turns again. But today, that day in Fertility Week, even as Finn is likely preparing more mud for even more earthenware, there is a wonderful proclamation which has been made. It is something that all of the Vale is aware of at this point. And that is that there is to be a marriage. So I think one of the things that you'll have as a takeaway from this instantly is sort of how the news gets out. Jake, your character is the first one to hear this publicly. And the reason why is that there is a young man who had come before sacred time. His name is Dindros of Pillbase. He comes to see your father. And when he does so, he comes very respectfully and asks the chieftain if he would officiate a ceremony. Your father takes the matter very seriously, as oaths are something that all Haraborn take very personally. Honor is important. And Dindros is, while by no means your match in height or weight, or likely even strength, he is a proud Orlanthi man. And he has had his eye for some time on a woman. And you have seen them together before. Her name is Janira. And he comes to, in that same sort of longhouse that your father lives at, and asks him to officiate it. And your father asks him what he's prepared to do. He must show something specific. He must make a grand gesture. For marriages are, amongst the Haraborn, are truly for one purpose, and that is the purpose of children. And so when Dindros comes with this request, he unveils that, and he says that he is going to go during sacred time on a grand quest. He is going to go into that realm where hero quests occur, and he is going to retrieve a very important piece, a piece lost to the Haraborn for years. And that relic is the girdle of Green Garden. And your father seems very impressed by his daring. And so he agrees that if Dindros can recover the girdle, then he is more than happy to officiate the ceremony. And then he has some very direct words with Dindros about failure and about how staking a claim like this means that it's very important he succeeds, especially because such an announcement will be made to the entire Vale. Everyone will know. And true to his word, near the end of sacred time, Dindros reappears. He looks a little haggard. He looks tired, but ultimately he appears victorious. He has this piece of cloth that is wrapped around his shoulder, sort of carries it that way. And it is filled with all these strange and wondrous green stones. And directly over the center, in the middle, there is that beautiful, loving, and important symbol of fertility. And your father congratulates him. They have a drink. They talk about how it happened. And he regales you with this amazing tale of having gone on this quest and being able to prove out to aspects of both Orlanth and Arnalda that his love was real. So you're the first person, as far as you know, that Dindros has made his claim and he has completed his hero quest. You believe you're the first person to know that Dindros and Janira are going to get married. So Heather, a couple weeks before this, because you live in the same stead, Janira tells you that Dindros is likely going to go off on this crazy hero quest, an attempt to capture her love of Sort. Have many different little chuckles about this. For her part, Janira is the catch of the stead. She is everything that Arnalda could bless a young woman with. She has all that and more. And she has been chased and courted and sought after by many men in the steads, perhaps even a few women. And Dindros and her have sort of been circling each other for some time. They've been caught in the bushes with one another. They've been, secretly out on working on the farm and maybe not working the farm. But they seem to care very much for one another. And so before any of the official word gets out, your stead, you understand, because there's so many close bonds here in these longhouses, you understand what's coming for her. And she's very excited. And as the days pass through sacred time before sea season, she makes her own preparations. She seeks out the riddle, the home of Arnalda here for the Haraborn. And she seeks guidance. And the person she gets it from is the person that most people would get that sort of guidance from, and that's Morganath of Highwater. That's the head priestess of Arnalda, a blind woman, but one who sees beyond so many things. For someone who is, we'll just say, slim when it comes to their compliments of a person, this is not someone who Morganath does not compliment. This is a woman who sees that echo of fertility and mother energy in Janira, and by gods, Morganath is 100% behind this happening. So there's a little time that Janira spends away from the stead, and when she returns, she is, we can say, full of life. Her body has changed considerably. And your stead is well aware that this marriage is going to take place. You just don't know when, until you find out when. And the great thing about this for everybody else is news rips through the vale within hours that there's going to be this amazing wedding ceremony, and that it's going to take place in Hillbase. This tells you all a couple of things, right? Janira is going to leave Cliffshield, and she's going to go live in Hillbase. So that is sort of how the things have been transferred. You know Janira's family very well. They are very particular. You're not really sure they like Dindros. That might not matter, though. As the news spreads over the days before the ceremony, you're all suddenly tasked with certain things. James, both you and Morgan's character live in Hillbase.
Yep.
So you'd get word, Morgan, that there's going to be a wedding and that the chieftain is going to come here and officiate it. And so that is enough to ring some alarm bells all over the Vale, because it means that the chieftain probably will bring half the inner ring with him. So a lot of really important people are going to be outside your longhouse and your family's longhouse. And that means that your to-do list just grew. So you're sort of beset upon by death itself in the form of a to-do list. as all of the young people here are being tasked with gathering water and preparing a fire and doing all these little things that are important. There's supposed to be a processional line. You're not sure what that is, but it's supposed to be coming. And you can only assume that that means more work for you. James, your father's workload is like tripled in under 24 hours.
Oh, hands down. The chieftain and his accoutrement plus a wedding in the Hillstead. We don't have enough pottery on shelves right now.
You can feel the pulse though, right? Like you can feel, your character, especially Finn, feels like the pulse of energy start up. Like excitement is building. Something is happening other than like going out and tending the fields or tending to cattle or making sure the cotters have what they need for their pig farms. Something exciting is happening.
Joe Dakar taught another 6-point buck. Woohoo. This is big.
For you, especially Jake, your character, you'd be a part of that inner ring group that's going to come down for this. You'd know that. So you would be instructed by your father to make sure that, you're prepared. And he tells you that many of the inner ring will be coming with us. We won't leave until everyone's ready. And he gives you a couple of informational points here. There will be a procession that comes from Cliff Shield to Hill Base. We have to be waiting for Janira and her processional from Cliff Shield. And you get the real sense that this is part of his duty. And so he's seemingly taking it very seriously.
So I pay very close attention to everything, since it may be that someday I will have to take over this role.
Certainly. So there's a couple people that you see him talk to immediately afterwards, right? He speaks with Jody White, who is a sage. That's the Lankermai sage. That's the font of wisdom here. He does eventually speak with Morganath of Highwater. That's the aforementioned head priestess of Ronalda. And he speaks with your uncle, Savin, son of Kenstrel of Twypebus. That's the chief priest and Storm Voice of the Haraborn. Chief Orlanthi priest here, because he's going to have to be involved as well. He gives you a task, and that is to go out to the nearby cotters and determine whom among them should serve as the voice of the people. He explains to you that during the ceremony, cotters and others are invited to ensure that everyone is taken into consideration. It's often the cotters feel left out of the day-to-day movement in the steads because they live in, basically single-family cottages, and all they do is watch over pigs or other herds. And so he says you must pick the right one to come and speak at the ceremony.
I won't fail you, Uncle.
For you, Heather, you have a very special job. Your mother is part of the processional that will come down and will speak with speak for the people of Cliff Shield at least a little bit. But part of your job as one of the women of Cliff Shield is going to be to prepare Janira for this ceremony. And so she gives you a list of things that she wants. And one of the things that she wants is to be painted green and to have, Ronalda's runes placed on her body and to be wrapped in the proper cloth. And she gets what we would call a glow up. But that's part of your task. And so you're going to have to collect those things. So this won't necessarily come down to rolls yet, but I'd like to get an idea from all of our folks who have tasks here, all of our Haraborn here. So James, talk me through how you're going to assist your father prepare. You have a wedding coming now, and you have no idea how many plates and cups and whatnot you're going to need, but how will Finn prepare?
Finn has been up since dawn. He has been back and forth with their cart down to the river, probably 2 or 3 trips, maybe with a brief break here and there. But he understands exactly how important this is for his father and for their family. So he's been finding the choicest deposits of good solid clay down by the river. His father taught him how to spot it, and bringing up just 10, 15-pound bundles at a time up the... he's been doing this since he could push the wheelbarrow, so this is actually kind of exercise for him. Up the bank and across town. But he occasionally will use the various colors clays on the banks to paint like silly things on his face, like a scald would. Like he saw one time where the performers that do the backflips through the fair, through the various fairs while they perform. And so that, he's always got a big smile on his face as he's through the market, weaving his way through people. Good morrow. Morning.
You get some mud. You get a chance to replenish some of your father's stock. And when you're done, he asks you to go in and get a count of the pottery that's available, the pieces that are available. And if we don't have enough, then he's tasked you to go and collect.
One more trip. All right. Well, I'll count first, and we'll see where we stand then. Okay. Potter. I'll be in the back room. Grabs a tally board and a stylus and begins carefully moving stock around and counting the mugs and vases and plates. He also tallies up the amount of glazes, the various colored glazes and such, because nobody wants colored clay.
Alana, you get a to-do list. And the to-do list is fairly long and involved. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you make a manage household roll.
All right. Currently at a 45, so we'll see what I got a 32 out of 45.
Okay, that's a success. So you spend the better part of the day preparing all of the things on this list. That means spiking out an area where the celebration is going to take place. That means getting tables from the longhouse into position where they'll need to be outside, because clearly you don't want to have a celebration indoors. We want to have it out in underneath the sky, Orland's sky, and of course firmly planted on Ronaldo's earth. You get some help, and that comes in the form of mostly children who are 2 or 3 years younger than you are. And so part of the managed household role you're making is to also sort of wrangle them into proper position, because the adults are trying to do what sustains the stead. So all those tasks are continuing, and they have sort of tasked you off, rightly so, in managing this. So by the end of the day, you'll have allotted for about 8 tables, necessary benches. But the one thing you're coming up short in, after getting, maybe 2 or 3 tables worth of cups and plates, is you are woefully unprepared to seat all these people. They need cups, and the person to go to. And that's going to be Finn's father, who is a potter.
I spent the day wrangling some preteens, which is always a good time because they don't probably want to listen to me anyways. And so Alara goes to find Finn first. She's got her hair braided, but it's chestnut colored hair. It's really messy when she runs up to Finn, and she's probably got dirt and sweat all over her face from dragging tables out. So she's about 5'11". She weighs 160 pounds. She's very tall and athletic and pretty defined muscles from working in the fields and with animals her whole life. She has blue-gray eyes and tan skin from, again, her many hours of working outdoors and wandering the valley with her BFF, Finn. So she goes running up to Finn, goes searching around, and Finn, I need to talk to your dad.
Finn pokes his head out of the back room, hearing Alara come in, covered in, clay and mud and whatnot. Oh, Alara, you you look nice today. How are you?
She looks down at her work shirt and pants, and they're all dirty. But yeah, I like your hat. I don't have enough seats for the people that are coming. Where's your dad?
Oh, he doesn't make chairs.
No.
Pokes his head back into the back room. Pokes his head back up. You didn't mean chairs, did you?
No.
Actually, he is out back by the kiln right now. How many do you think you'll need?
Start counting on my fingers. 1, 2, 12. I need 12.
1, 2, 12. Okay. So 12. All right. I'll tell Dad we don't have that. So I'm gonna have to go get another load down by the river. So, well, hey, do you want to come with? It's an important task.
Oh.
He winks.
Down by the river? Yes, count me in. Count me in. Need to get out of here.
He sticks his head out the back door. Father.
Yeah.
The inventory is going to be woefully short, and we just got an order for at least a dozen more.
Weddings.
Oh, you cannot complain. I mean, come on. Seriously, look around. This is going to be great for us. And when Mom pulls her head back down out of the clouds and notices what's going on down here, she will appreciate it.
I should have known. That those two have been dancing around each other for a few seasons now.
They have been making eyes at one another for years now. I mean, they were like a pair of deer in the forest. You see, in the spring. I even noticed it. Come on. All right, so I'm going to go get at least one more load of clay, Dad. Okay?
Yeah, all right.
Grabs the barrel or the wheelbarrow and scuttles around the side to meet Alara, and conveniently grabs his fishing pole and sling on the way by.
Okay. The two of you get what you need and head back down towards the river. Jake, you make it out to the Cotter section. So the inner ring doesn't exactly have one. So you have to go to a nearby stead. It's a little bit of travel. It's not a ton, but it does mean that you're not technically within the ring anymore. You're sort of out on your own. And this is great because it's an opportunity for you to get out, see things, and do some important work for your father. I guess the question I have for you is, are you going north or south?
I think I will go south, because is that towards the majority of the steads?
Yeah, so south would take you to Hill Base. So Hill Base for you, and because you would totally be aware of it, is fairly close to Stag Hill. And that is the Orlanthe focus holy ground. It's probably a path that you would know really, really well.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go south.
Okay. So you get to Hill Base, and you work in and amongst some of the outer areas of that stead. And you can see that there are a couple of cotters here. And there's also small fencing and an area for pigs. And there's an area over there for sheep.
So what would be the more important herdsmen, cotters? Pigs, sheep?
I mean, they both serve their purposes. I suppose one could argue that sheep are pretty important because they also provide wool. But then again, you could also make leather goods out of pig. So it's sort of a take your pick at that point.
Right. I guess I should just talk to as many of them as I can.
Okay.
Get an idea of the more important cotters in the area.
Okay.
The ones that with better reputations.
Sure. So there is one that you know of. He's a little further south than this one, but his name is Jarang. And Jarang comes from a line who previously to some of his ancestors fought in the Battle of Boldholm. And some of them reportedly survived, and that's why he's here. And he has, in effect, sort of decided that it's best in his life to serve a little bit simpler of a purpose rather than being a weapon thane or rather than being a a full-time armsman or warrior to be a farmer. And he's not necessarily the nicest guy, but that's more along the lines of he's one of those people that need the peace and quiet of away from steads. Doesn't like the buzzing of children. Doesn't like all of the back and forth between so many families. He has his family and a single, wooden shed that he farms and lives out of.
Okay, so I think I'll approach him first.
Okay. It doesn't take you too long to get to his section of the vale, and you see him out working in one of his fields. You can see not too far from here there is his selection of pigs, and he has some fairly exceptional pieces to look at. Many of his pigs are exceedingly large. He probably would bring a very fine price at market.
Does he happen to be out with his herd?
Yeah, he's out working in a garden nearby. So looks like root vegetables, that sort of thing. Looks like he's checking things after having planted.
Hail!
He turns around and stands up. Hail!
I don't mean to intrude upon your work here, but I have been sent by Savin Son
He nods.
to speak to a cotter about coming to a wedding ceremony.
He kind of smirks, walks over towards you. Vargas, yes?
Yes.
Yes. I know your father, as we all do. And his brother. You want to speak to a pig farmer? You want him to speak at a wedding? Ha! Are you sure your father will like the words I have to say?
Well, I don't know if it's up to my father. We need the words of the local cotters. Pay them the respect they're due.
An old tradition, this one. You ever work with pigs?
I can't say I have.
All right, then. You want my words? I want your work.
That seems a fair trade.
Come, I'll show you. He walks you back to where many of his pigs are kept, and he indicates what part of the field needs to be turned and where they need to go. And so part of your job, Jake, will be to direct several of these large pigs into a specific area, so that way the rest of the portion of this field can be thoroughly tilled. Not cleaned, because that's not something they would do, but messy work, this.
Right.
I guess, Jake, give me a herd roll.
Well, that'd be 36 over 20.
Okay, so you do know something about herding. So in that first couple of hours, you failed to get a lot of these pigs where they need to go. You end up in the mud more than a few times. Trying to get a pig, or a large animal for that matter, to do something it does not want to do is a challenge. It just uses its body weight against you. So after a little while, the farmer comes back, and you can see the object lesson that he's trying to teach you. And he steps over, and with a quick whistle, the pigs start moving into the penned up area just by themselves.
That would have been nice to know at the beginning.
But then you wouldn't have learned anything.
Indeed.
And so, yes, I'll speak at your father's ceremony. I'll remind all those people down there that every part of the vale has to work together to get people what they need. Now, there's a water bucket there you can clean up with.
Thank you, good cotter.
He smirks. Heather, I think it gives you an opportunity, your painting session gives you an opportunity to perhaps indulge in your creative side. This is a time here in your stead that is filled with an amazing amount of joy. And your mother and many of the other steads, women, take an amazing amount of herbs and plants and they're making things with their hands. There's a lot of humming and chanting and togetherness to create this green body paint.
Mm-hmm.
And collectively, you get it on your hands and you can feel sort of this, it's a strange residue, right? That they've made. It's a little bit of many things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love to get an idea of how you'd go about the process and sort of hand you narrative to explain how you paint her.
So once everything is gathered, I'm sure some of the women are singing songs of love and fertility and life and the joining of pairs together as they're mortar and pestiling, grinding all these herbs down. And then as the batches are done with bringing them over to those of us who are chosen to actually paint her, it would start, there would probably be a couple of women on either side of her. It would start, and as the song would progress, it would go probably from the neck down first, along the chest, and then out each of the arms.
Mm-hmm.
The songs and the chant would be weaving in blessings, invoking Arnalda, and made the arms that will hold the children that you will bear be strong, but soft when needed, to do the work that is to come in maintaining the household. There would be down for her chest, down along through her breasts and on the side, especially over her heart, where I'm sure that's where a rune, there will be specific runes. And when it's put on in almost a runic pattern, the green, over the heart, probably invoking Ilaria, the earth goddess of love. May there be love ever in your heart for your husband and your children, your mate. As it would continue down along her belly, again, being done in runic patterns, invoking Arnalda herself and the fertility. May she be blessed with many, many healthy children, sons and daughters of strength and beauty. Ones would be with the legs, for you are the foundational support of your home. You are the foundational support to bring in the next generation of your stead and of our people. So may they hold up with strength and swiftness, because running after children is a tough job, because it's all joyous. And then probably lastly would be up into her face again, but probably winding through in runic patterns. May your eyes be clear to see all that is needed before you. May your mouth speak truth as the line of truth is around her lips. May you always hear, because you will never sleep again, because you will always have to hear the truth and listen for the laughter and joys of your children, to bear the pain that will come as they learn their lessons in life. And at the end, there will probably be either a black, probably of like a crushed charcoal, I would think, or brown, almost clay, mud, something different. And then over the green, there would probably be, again, those runic symbols put on those specific areas around her face, along her arms, over her breasts, especially her left one, along probably several in a square pattern around her belly, and then a few trailing down along her legs. It's a layering process that she would undergo, each providing joy and blessings to her, and invoking Arnalda and probably possibly some of the grain goddesses, and even going, Eularia, who with love.
So here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you roll your fertility rune.
That is a 19 under 75.
Okay. You get the sense during this process of painting Janira and preparing her for this walk to the next stead that she is truly blessed in a way you might not even understand. There's something in her. You get this vision of tiny little sparks, no bigger than a grain of wheat, perhaps, but they exist inside her, and you're not sure what they are, but they emanate this raw power that comes out of her. And when she's fully prepared, she emanates this feminine power, this femininity that everyone amongst the group can see and take joy in, because so many of them have been to that portion that Janira is at in her life. They see the reflection. And for you, as someone who's not yet come of age, her body is both a wondrous mystery and perhaps a future vision. And to be so connected to the process in preparation, it's hard not to weep to see that portion and to play this part. It connects you very close to the earth. You feel the grasp of Mother hold you close as Janira very lightly slips into the cloth that's been prepared for her, which will sort of crisscross her body to allow for her to be both clothed and exposed for her mate. It's a very fulfilling process for you that day, and it probably leaves you a little charged afterwards. Back at the riverbank, Finn, you and Alana are able to gather the mud, but you're also allowed and perhaps take a little time to do absolutely nothing.
Gladly. Away from the hubbub of the main village chaos right now, just the sound of the river and me and Alara talking is fantastic. Birds and whatnot.
And for you, Alara, what is time away after wrangling so many children like?
It's definitely a nice breather, having to order around the preteens. Alara will be going into her 18th year in just a little over a season and a half. So she really doesn't have time for these little kids as much anymore as she used to, but she does the will of her elders as a good girl.
You're part of the mix. You would be well aware that, when you were 5 or so years younger, that older siblings or older children in the stead also did the same.
Yes, doing my duty to help guide and mold the younger generation.
Finn is doing nothing of the sort.
I'm just sitting on the side of the riverbank, watching Finn fish and just gazing out and watching the wildlife. And
so you were essentially the Grand Marm today? The shepherdess? Keeping all of the little giggling little creatures in the pen?
more like the grand herder. No, they did a good job. It's just exhausting. I don't know how my parents do it, or any of the parents do it.
Well, first of all, your parents have it easy because you, and he gently points the the fishing pole at Alara before putting it back in the water. Never misbehave.
Wow. Never. I just behave better than you do.
Everyone behaves better than I do. There are pigs in the next stead over that behave better than I do. And boy, God's bless them.
That is the truth. My mother and your mother have spoken quite a number of times.
And by that you mean your mother has spoken to my mother while my mother nods and shrugs.
Probably. My mother does like to talk.
Well, still, what is ours to do in the Hillstead? I mean, we're not exactly a booming city center here, and I kind of like it that way.
Yes, thank the gods for that.
Although, this wedding, Finn gets kind of a wry smile, topsy-turvy craziness for the next season. Because even after it's done, people are not going to be able to let it go. They can't let anything special go around here. They have to continue talking about it. You know, worrying it over like one does a bad tooth.
Yeah, I wonder who's coming. Sure, we'll have to be on our best behavior.
Or are we talking before or after the ceremony? Again, Finn, it's a wry smile.
Laura just rolls her eyes.
Honestly, I think everyone is going to be here from the inner circle. And honestly, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you're looking forward to schmoozing with them.
Well, yes, because I already know everything that's going on in town with the people that we know. And now I would like to figure out what's going on outside of our little pasture.
Well, good luck to you. You can tell me everything later.
I always do.
I know.
Pulls the fishing pole back. And, well, they're not biting today. And that's fine. We should probably get back. It can only take so much time. He loads the last few bundles of clay and cloth onto the wheelbarrow and hefts it up. Finn is about 5'11", 155, 160 pounds, so he's fairly thin, but very well built as he makes many, many trips with the wheelbarrow to the river and has since he was quite small. Has extremely unkempt hair that he just kind of keeps tucked under the big floppy hat that he always wears. And has extremely piercing blue eyes and a pretty constant smile that can go easily from jovial to caustic has been thrown around. He hefts the wheelbarrow. Come on, you want to ride?
No, I can walk myself. You got enough to push back. I walk alongside him and I pick random flowers along the path on the way back and start tying them together and then eventually make a crown of flowers and I put it over his hat. Look at that. You're so pretty now.
Finn sings a tune. He has a sing of 50, so it's probably fairly decent. Just, one he's learned around the marketplace.
Sure, certainly. So the two of you walk back. Jake, you return to the inner ring and your father's house. And oddly enough, he is standing outside of it, dressed as if he is prepared for something special. Battle or a wedding, hard to tell.
Same thing.
Agreed. When he sees you, you see his face sort of turn into a mountainside of glower for just a half second. Where have you been?
I have been arranging for the cotter to come speak at the wedding.
Pigs, he smiles.
Pigs.
Hopefully you learned something.
Yes, don't go talk to the cotters.
Oh, they're good people. They just, they have a special place here. We are duty-bound to remember that. Now, I have to move south to see what they are prepared. Ceremony will begin shortly, which means I have another task for you.
Yes, Father.
You will head to Stag Hill. You will collect Dendros and his band, he smirks, you will ensure that they can arrive properly at Hillgate. It is not too terribly far. It is likely you will find them in a joyous mood.
Drunk.
It is a wedding.
Of course. I'll clean up and you can count on me.
Good. I'll need them there soon. They must arrive before Janira and her procession do. We must greet the Earth Goddess as it arrives.
Understood.
I will make my way out. He steps off the stoop of the longhouse and heads out.
And I'll go get cleaned up and changed.
Okay. You head out. Stag Hill is not terribly far from where you were. It's actually just a little bit further down the way, and then you have to climb to Stag Hill. So this is a place traditionally that the Orlanthi come to as their place of power. This is also the male place of power in the Vale. So that is an important thing to note, and it is something that you would be well aware of. It's a mound of earth about 20 meters high and 70 meters in diameter. It's capped by a ring of 7 standing stones. This ring contains the ancient graves of Jostakas, son of Hort, and the original warband that founded the Haraborn, including, it is said, Ungbark Zakbak, who is the source of the darkness rune that some of the community are born with. The worship of Orlanth and the Thunder Brothers is conducted from atop the hill. It doesn't take you terribly long to hear Dindros and his fellows here. They are hooting and hollering and drinking and playing games with one another, aggressive wrestling and all sorts of very adrenaline-raising male fun. Dindros, for himself, is just about 6 feet tall. He's probably no more than 200 pounds. He's a well-built Orlanthi man, but he is not by any means a mountain such as yourself. The one quality that you know about Dindros is that he is crafty. He's someone who has a very keen mind, and he usually uses that intelligence to tactically change things for his betterment. It's also something that's got him into trouble in the past with some other families around the Vale, because Dindros is he has a reputation for, we'll just say, traveling the Vale and the many steads therein. He's also quite nice to look at for some of the women here too. You would bet that there are several women within the stead that are maybe just a little put out that Dindros is off the map now, even if he does come from a little bit of a meager place. So that is also something that you would know, Jake, is that on the social ladder, Janira is way higher than Dindros. That is likely why he had to hero quest to win her agreement in marriage. It wouldn't be done without it. You get close enough, and you see that you see someone familiar. And that person that you see is Jorganath Bladesong, formerly of Twice Blessed. He is your father's chief weapon thane and the Sword of Humacht here. So his pale, thin visage sits outside this space. He's not within the stones, but he's watching nearby. He's sort of like a judge who watches and takes notes. He almost has a menace to him. You can see that the death rune is traced in ash on his forehead.
Right as I get to the top of the hill, I'll call out, Dendros!
You see the youth doesn't turn immediately, but has to have friends sort of direct him. And he spins and turns, and then you watch his friends, adjust his spin rate and his angle. And he moves with the grace of any Orlanthe warrior who's probably imbibed a little too much. He gets his feet under him and puts a hand on one of the stones. What is it?
The time of your execution is at hand.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And they're going to send the chieftain's son here to ruin my fun.
Well, I think you have some more fun coming later.
I do indeed. Where's the? He starts looking around. And you see him, like, honestly get a sliver of panic in his face. And then he runs over to a place near the hill and scoops a bundle up. And then slides that girdle over his shoulder as almost if it's some sort of prize belt, which in effect it is. And then stumbles back towards you, and some of his other compatriots surround him, poking fun at him, carrying on, generally just grab-assing as he eventually gets to where Dragunath is. And the Weapon Thane looks at him very carefully. Complete stone face, zero emotion. You mean to marry like this? And Dindros looks back at him. You can tell that even through the alcohol, Dindros was not planning on getting close to talking to your father's Weapon Thane. And he says, well, how else should I? Should I not be full of joy? Or did they teach you that? Should God not teach you joy? Orlanthe teaches me joy. And we will show you what the meaning of that is. And Dragunath doesn't move. He doesn't reply. He just stares at him. And to a man, perhaps less intoxicated, you'd be shaking. But Dindros eventually wanders over to you and says, drink with us. You have to drink with us along the way. It's a rule.
Well, far be it from me to break the rules on such a sacred day.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The wind is with us. And Dindros whips his hands into the air and calls out Orlanthe's name. See me, Orlanthe. Come and bless my wedding with sweet winds and stamina for the what nights to come. And you feel the wind pick up through the stones here. And there's just the slightest change in pitch. The hair on your arm stands up. And you see a big smile come across Dindros' face, and he shoves the wineskin into your hand. Let's make our way.
After you are the guest of honor.
He stumbles down the hill. His friends have to catch him a few times before he goes ass over tea kettle, but you do eventually make it all the way down. And I think we'll give a pause there to our RuneQuest story, as all of our characters are slowly making their way towards a very special ceremony, which we'll all get a chance to see and hear next week.